When it comes to American land yachts, few decades shine brighter than the 1950s and 1960s. This was the golden era of chrome, sweeping lines, and a philosophy that bigger was always better. Automobiles were more than machines in this period. They were rolling symbols of prosperity, freedom, and the promise of the American dream. For many enthusiasts, myself included, the 50s will always stand out for their elegance. Cars of that decade carried a sculptural beauty, with every fender and every curve telling a story of optimism and boldness after the war years. It's difficult to pick a favorite when looking at the grand sedans and coupes of that time. The Buicks, with their proud grilles and elegant sweep spears, the Mercurys with their understated sophistication, and the Oldsmobiles with their mix of comfort and innovation. Each has a strong case for being the best expression of the era. Yet, when we move forward to the middle years of the 1960s, my decision becomes much easier. In that period, Pontiac's Bonneville takes the crown. The Bonneville wasn't just another car on the road. It was introduced in 1958 as Pontiac's Halo model, a nameplate that carried prestige and set the tone for the entire lineup. By 1959, it had become the company's top-tier offering, representing Pontiac's ambition to move upmarket while maintaining its reputation for performance. Styling in the early years leaned heavily into the long and low look that dominated American roads. But it was the redesign of 1961 that truly signaled Pontiac's arrival as a design powerhouse. With Bill Mitchell guiding the General Motors design studios, the Bonneville joined the Coke bottle styling craze, those sensuous, pinched-in flanks that gave the impression of motion even when standing still. By 1965, Pontiac had refined the look into something truly commanding. Longer, lower, and more sculpted than ever before. For me, the 1965 Bonneville, especially in two-door hardtop form, stands as one of the most graceful expressions of Pontiac design. A car that embodies the very best of what mid-60s American motoring had to offer. What makes the 1965 Bonneville even more special in my eyes is not just its presence on the road, but the color in which it was offered. Among the 15 paint shades available that year, one stood out as rare, exotic, and unforgettable: Iris Mist. To some, it looked pink, a daring shade for such a large and imposing car. Others described it as mauve, a light purple with a hint of silver. To me, Iris Mist has always been closer to silver kissed with lavender, a subtle hue that shifts character depending on the light. On the broad, flowing curves of the Bonneville, it is nothing short of spectacular. Unlike the safe whites, blacks, and blues that populated most dealer lots, Iris Mist made a statement. This was not just another car. This was a rolling piece of art. Its rarity only adds to the mystique. Offered for 1 year only in 1965, the shade was pulled from the Pontiac palette in 1966 and never returned. We don't have exact figures, but collectors and historians estimate that only a few hundred cars were ever painted this color across all Pontiac models, with perhaps only dozens of Bonnevilles receiving the treatment. Finding one today, especially a two-door hardtop still wearing its original Iris Mist, is a near impossible task. Chevrolet, of course, had its own twin to Iris Mist, called Evening Orchid, offered in the same year. GM often shared hues across its divisions, but Pontiac's Bonneville wore Iris Mist differently. Where the Impala might have looked playful in the shade, the Bonneville's proportions gave it gravitas. The long hood, the wide stance, the sweeping roofline, every panel seemed to bring out a new dimension in the color. Even those who might dismiss purple cars often stop in their tracks when they see Iris Mist in person. It's one of those rare paints that changes personality depending on sunlight and surroundings. On a bright day, it shimmers almost like metallic silver. Under dusk, it leans toward lavender. In shadow, it deepens into something richer, more mysterious. It is, quite simply, unforgettable. What elevates the particular Bonneville I'm writing about isn't just its paint, though. This car carries a history, a story of ownership that adds to its soul. According to the seller, the Pontiac spent its entire life in the hands of one family. The original owner cherished it, drove it, and eventually passed it down. After his passing, his daughter held onto the car, a rolling connection to memories of childhood, family trips, and the presence of her father behind the wheel. Eventually, she decided the time had come to part with it, and the Bonneville emerged from storage looking remarkably pristine. We don't have every detail of its journey, but all evidence points to a restoration at some point in its life, done with care and accuracy. The iris mist paint looks factory correct. No small feat given how difficult this shade is to replicate. Many modern shops shy away from attempting it, but whoever handled the work here got it right. That alone speaks volumes about the level of respect this Pontiac received throughout its life. There are details worth noting that add both charm and character. The car wears its optional vinyl roof, black in color, which sets off the paint beautifully even if, in my opinion, it slightly interrupts the clean lines of the coupe. On some cars, vinyl tops can feel like an afterthought, a dealer gimmick to dress things up. On this Bonneville, it somehow works, tying together with the all-black interior. Purists might wish it had been left as a pure painted hardtop, but taste is subjective, and the fact that the top is correct to period makes it part of the car's authentic story. Step inside and the black vinyl interior greets you with a mix of comfort and authority. Pontiac interiors of the mid-60s were not as ostentatious as Cadillacs, but they carried a sporty edge. The wide dashboard, with its horizontal speedometer and chrome-trimmed gauges, reminds you that this was a car built not only for cruising but also for driving. The seats, broad and inviting, speak to a time when long-distance comfort mattered more than bolstered side support. You didn't buy a Bonneville to carve mountain passes. You bought it to glide down the interstate at 70 miles per hour, with the windows down and the AM radio crackling out the latest hits. Under the hood, this particular Bonneville carries Pontiac's bread and butter 389 cubic inch V8, topped with a 4-barrel carburetor and paired to an automatic transmission. Rated at 325 horsepower in this configuration, it provided effortless performance for a car of its size. This was an engine with pedigree. The 389 had already made its name powering the first GTOs, and in Bonneville trim, it balanced smoothness with strength. Pontiac also offered lesser and greater variants in 1965. A 2-barrel version rated at 256 horsepower for those who prioritized economy, and the famous tri-power setup with 3 2-barrel carbs delivering 338 horsepower. For those who wanted even more, the larger 421 cubic inch V8 beckoned, offering up to 356 horsepower in tri-power guise. But the 389 4-barrel was the sweet spot, giving owners plenty of muscle without sacrificing drivability or reliability. In an age before fuel economy dominated conversations, numbers like these were badges of honor. Owning a Bonneville meant owning power. Production figures give us a sense of how popular the Bonneville was in 1965. Out of Pontiac's total output, the Bonneville accounted for nearly 17%, with 134,020 units leaving the factory. The 2-door hardtop was among the most desired configurations, with 44,030 examples sold. Yet within those numbers, the Iris Mist cars represent only a fraction, a rare thread woven into a much larger tapestry. This scarcity is what makes surviving examples so collectible today. For most people, spotting one in person is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. For collectors, acquiring one becomes a quest, a chase that can last years or even decades. The allure of cars like this goes beyond specifications. They are cultural artifacts, reflections of the time in which they were born. The mid-60s were a moment of transition in America. Highways expanded, suburbia thrived, and the car became both necessity and luxury. Automakers competed not only on horsepower but also on style, comfort, and innovation. Pontiac, under the leadership of figures like John DeLorean, was especially adept at capturing the spirit of the moment. The Bonneville stood as a flagship that blended the brand's performance DNA with elegance. It wasn't as flamboyant as Cadillac, but it wasn't meant to be. It was for the customer who wanted prestige without pretension, a statement of success without shouting. To order one in Iris Mist was to add a layer of individuality, a willingness to stand apart from the sea of beige and blue. Today, when enthusiasts gather at shows or auctions, cars like this 1965 Bonneville still command respect. Part of it is the sheer size. These land yachts dwarf modern cars, their presence undeniable. Part of it is the craftsmanship, the way chrome was laid with pride, the way steel doors closed with a satisfying thud. And part of it is nostalgia, the recognition that we may never see cars like this again. Regulations, fuel concerns, and changing tastes all conspired to shrink and simplify American cars in the decades that followed. The big, bold Bonneville is a reminder of a different mindset, a time when excess was celebrated rather than restrained. Owning such a car today is not without its challenges. Parts, while available thanks to strong Pontiac clubs and aftermarket support, require effort to source. Fuel economy is, by modern standards, abysmal. Parking and maneuvering demand patience. Yet for those who understand, these are not drawbacks but part of the experience. Driving a 1965 Bonneville is not about convenience. It's about immersion. It's about sitting behind a long hood, gripping a thin steering wheel, and feeling the road through a suspension tuned for smoothness rather than precision. It's about admiring the view out over a sculpted dashboard while the big V8 hums quietly, ready to surge forward at the touch of the throttle. It's about commanding attention at every stoplight, not because you seek it, but because the car insists on it. This particular Iris Mist Bonneville, with its family history, its careful preservation, and its rarity, embodies all of that and more. It's not just a collector's item. It's a piece of living history. To stand next to it is to be transported back to 1965, to imagine a sunny afternoon when it was brand new, parked proudly in a suburban driveway, neighbors stopping by to admire the unusual paint. It's to imagine a father handing over the keys for the first time, a daughter climbing in for a trip to the ice cream shop, the car becoming part of the fabric of family life. Decades later, those memories linger, carried in the metal, in the chrome, in the very scent of the upholstery. That as I reflect on it, I realize that what draws me to cars like this is not just the rarity or the beauty, but the humanity they carry. Machines though they may be, they are vessels of time, memory, and meaning. The 1965 Bonneville in Iris Mist is more than an automobile. It is a story on wheels, one that continues to be told every time the engine starts, every time the sunlight dances across its lavender sheen. In a world where so much is disposable and temporary, that permanence, that continuity, is priceless.